To many, pot appears to be innocuous. The business behind the high is another story. Savagery follows illicit businesses, and as long as forbiddance endures, individuals will execute for the item and its benefits. Sought to torment the lawful market also. Cash draws in eagerness, insatiability breeds viciousness, and cannabis persuades murder. While California may have sanctioned cannabis in 2018, a bootleg market keeps on flourishing alongside the related savagery. On September 7, Riverside County Police showed up at a habitation in Iguanga and found 6 individuals dead from discharges. An unidentified female casualty was alive and hurried to the medical clinic where she later died. Investigators found the indications of an illicit pot developing activity at the property on the edge of Cleveland National Forest. This was an exceptionally huge activity, an extremely sorted-out wrongdoing kind of activity, noted Sheriff Chad Bianco. There were several cannabis plants, a make-move nursery, a research center for butane extraction of THC, and in excess of 1,000 pounds of handled marijuana. These passings bring the absolute of illicit weed activity-related manslaughters in Riverside District this year to 14. These develops acquire gigantic measures of money. Without admittance to banks or police, their practical objectives for predators. On September 23, 2019, a South Carolina mailman was discovered loaded with 223 slugs in her mail vehicle. Referred to tenderly as that mail Santa Mana, Irene Presley worked for the U.S. Postal Service for almost 20 years. Police captured Trevor Raekwon Seward, 22, and Jerome Terrell Davis, 28, for the Silly Butcher. Court archives affirm the pair killed Presley, 64, at 3 p.m. with the aim to take a bundle of marijuana. A unique mark on one of Presley's packages followed back to Seward. Examiners charged Seward was seen holding an AR-15 in a matter of seconds before the hour of the homicide. A third man, Ricky Jesus Rocha Barajas, 28, of Santa Rosa, Siete, was accused of medication trick. Investigators charge Barajas and Davis encouraged a medication exchange through phone upon the arrival of the homicide. Seward and Davis face no not as much as life whenever indicted. Barajas could get 5 years in government jail. A medication bargain turned sour is trying the restrictions of Indiana's self-protection laws. Nobody debates that on April 28, 2019, Trishon Taylor endeavored to ransack Kyle Dorosco, 19, at gunpoint in the parking area of a South Bend bar. Dorosco pulled his own firearm and executed the burglar. Investigators accused Dorosco of homicide, guaranteeing that since he was endeavoring to sell weed at the hour of the shooting, he can't fit the bill for self-protection. Indiana law forestalls the utilization of self-protection at the time a wrongdoing is being carried out, regardless of whether that wrongdoing is non-violent. Dorosco's lawyer, John Kindley, notes, "It is crazy to suggest that an individual whose life is compromised while the person is occupied with a peaceful movement the legislature considers a wrongdoing, for example, selling weed or prostitution, should simply permit themselves to be killed or be accused of homicide in the event that they effectively shield themselves." On December 11, 2019, a Barnard first-year recruit was wounded to death in Manhattan's Morningside Park. Tessa Mages, 18, a Virginia local and performer, kicked the bucket of cut injuries to her face, neck and arms. 2 14-year-olds, Rashawn Weaver and Luciano Lewis, and an anonymous 13-year-old were captured and accused of her murder. During a meeting on AM 970's The Cats Round Table, Sergeants Benevolent Association President Ed Mullins uncovered Majors was in the recreation center to purchase pot. He accused Mayor de Blasio's hands-off way to deal with Mary Jane policing for her passing. Significant's family were horrified by Mullins' untrustworthy public theory and the profoundly unseemly demonstration of casualty disgracing. Brooklyn Public Protector Scott Etchinger brought up the silliness of utilizing Major's passing to disrupt weed change. Regardless of whether she were buying drugs, legitimization would have forestalled her need to go to the recreation center. she would have had the option to purchase from an authorized dispensary. On May 26, 2020, an Oklahoma City man shot and slaughtered a thief attempting to break into his business. Police Major Sergeant Gary Knight clarified. Daniel Hardwork, 42, was attempting to break in when the entrepreneur who was inside the structure at the time evidently started shooting with a handgun, striking and killing the man who was breaking in. However, LaRue Bratcher, 33, didn't possess only any business. It was a weed grow. It was around 480 plants, noted Knight, which comes out to roughly $1,500,000 of Mary Jane. Bratcher didn't have a development permit, which is a lawful offense. At first, he was set up for a $5,000 bond and accused of unlawful weed development. Nonetheless, when the DA's office investigated the situation, they included an extra charge of second-degree murder. As per Corey Harris, Bratcher's closest companion, he was captured for his permit not being state-of-the-art. In December 2019, a weed seller nicknamed Hitler conceded to a homicide for recruit plot. Marcus Etienne, 38, of St. Martin Parish, Louisiana, and co-respondent Maria Robinson, 36, of Opelousas, Louisiana, confessed to running an opiates appropriation organization. Etienne, who passes by Hitler, claims he ran the criminal venture since 2009. Investigators assert Hitler and co. had their hands in murder for enlist, opiates dispersion, theft, coercion, tax evasion, firearm running, and canine fighting. Etienne and Robinson confessed to killing partner Trince Thibodeau in 2016. Suspecting Thibodeau, 28, of taking from him, Etienne requested the hit. He paid Robinson $5,000 to dispense with Thibodeau. Robinson pivoted and paid Bergucci Rhodes $1,250 for the activity. Rhodes is being taken a stab at separately. 11. According to the request, Etienne transported pot to Texas and Louisiana through the postal help. For included frightfulness, examiners raised the cold-hearted treatment the canines utilized in Etienne's batting undertaking got. Indeed, even legitimate weed can be dangerous. In the early long stretches of October 1, 2019, aggressors broke into the home of a cannabis business visionary while he dozed, abducted him, and killed him. The next morning, the remaining parts of Tushar Atray, 50, were discovered the next morning in the Santa Cruz Mountains, drooped in his better half's white BMW with a solitary shot wound. 13. In May, 4 people were captured and accused of the homicide. Stephen Nicholas Lindsay, 22, and Caleb Charters, 19, worked for Atray's authorized cannabis dispensary and conveyance administration interstitial systems. Caleb's sibling, Curtis Chambers, 22, and Joshua James Camps, 23, were additionally accused of homicide, hijacking, carjacking, thievery, and burglary. Just Camps faces extra upgrades for his utilization of a firearm. 14. When squeezed about a thought process, Lieutenant Brian Cleveland stated these individuals needed financial increase and exploited the circumstance. None of the blamed has a criminal record. In November 2019, an Oakland conman was condemned to life for a twofold crime at Mendocino Pot Ranch. Just there was a trick: the homestead was phony. Wingwo Man, 53, otherwise known as Fat Mark, acquired cash from Jim Tatkong for different bomb tries from land planter pot ranchers. Dreading reprisal for the failure to reimburse the advances, Fat Mark picked duplicity and violence. Fat Mark drove Kong and Kong's better half, Cindy Bao Feng Chen, to a far-off territory outside Fort Bragg where he asserted he had another Mary Jane develop. While the speculators sat in their minivan, Ma put a projectile in every one of their heads. 3 cigarettes recuperated at the scene contained Fat Mark's DNA. 15. During the preliminary, proof rose that Fat Mark had been paying off Harry Hu, a previous Oakland Police Department lieutenant, since 2008. Fat Mark met with Hu days after the Mendocino twofold murder. On February 28, 2020, police showed up at the Savage, Minnesota Target to find a 16-year-old shot in the head. Samuel Keyser imagined kicked the bucket in the wake of being moved to Hennepin County Medical Center. Footage shows Keyser being pushed from a vehicle that fled the scene. Specialists followed the vehicle to Braylon Miller, 17. Police captured Braylon, yet in addition his dad Taron Miller, 44, and his mom Tanya Marie Miller, 43. Braylon admitted to orchestrating the cannabis exchange over Snapchat. Taron confessed to shooting the lethal shot since he thought the 16-year-old planned to remove the Mary Jane and run from the vehicle without paying. Police accuse Braylon of supporting and abetting second-degree murder. Tanya Marie deals with indictments of helping a guilty party to evade capture and supporting a wrongdoer as an accessory afterward. Taron's hunch was right. As per Keyser's partner, the arrangement was to move the pot and flee. In 1933, Victor Liccardo had separated his folks and three kin in their Ybor City home. The hatchet murder made ready for weed disallowance. A hypothesis that 21-year-old's activities were the consequence of cannabis-instigated wooziness earned him the name the Dream Slayer. Liccardo's awful axe murders roused the infamous 1936 against pot promulgation film Reefer Madness. However, Liccardo's activities were the after-effect of psychological maladjustment, not cannabis. Police attempted to submit him in 1932, yet his family can't. Recognizing the likely threat, Liccardo's dad laid down with a gun. As per the state lawyer, they wouldn't arraign Liccardo in light of the fact that it would be monetarily flippant to attempt somebody with a certainly settled psychological sickness. Rather, he was institutionalized. 19. Federal Bureau of Narcotics head Henry Anslinger seized on the Liccardo case and made it highlight of his enemy of Mary Jane crusade. In 1937, the prohibitionists figured out how to push the Marijuana Tax Act through Congress.